Hi, everybody.
Hi! We're back after a tiny little absence
Right,
because of
welcome to the Lore
internet
You Know.
stupidness.
Today we are on episode.
I
Woohoo!
love cats.
We are on episode 16. Last time and the time before we talked about Shelzar, part of the Scarland setting, and this time
Yeah.
there's not really a regional name for it. There's like a lot of names around there, but we're gonna call it Around Shelzar. Today's
Shelzar.
yeah
Yeah.
episode today
Like
is
this,
Around Shelzar.
not quite the southwest coast, because we're not
Right,
going to talk about the swamps or Fang's Fault today.
right.
But unless you want me to, and I'm not going to talk about the swamps today because I'm saving that. But just sort of the sweltering plains, the festering fields, and some of the interesting landmarks closer into the city.
Yeah.
Because of timing, mostly. It's like if we start a new topic, it'll be interrupted by this other topic. So yeah,
Right.
because next week there's a book coming out, and I want to cover that the week the book comes out.
Yeah.
So next week we'll talk about the weird horse people.
Yay. Which we'll mention today a little bit, but we'll actually talk about them next week.
yeah, let's talk about that. So yeah, around Shell. So if you leave the city, I talked briefly about there's like a little island there. But around the city, there's a bunch of cool locations just sort of in the immediate area. So we've got Cath Bay, which is just to the. I'm just kind of going to go around that this way. Cath Bay, which is this kind of off to the southwest. Yes,
Yeah,
I can do directions today.
Hooray! Over that
Southwest
way.
of it. Just kind of going like, and that's basically where the pirates hang out. Although it's really hard to get there, because you think that the Shelzar Navy, which is pretty badass, would just go in and be like, no more pirates. They screw up our economy and trade and stuff. So, but they can't get in there very easily because right before Cath Bay is the. I'm reading it because I can't remember the names of anything. This is Nasty Reef, Wrecker's Reef. And it's not as bad. There's this reef way at the north end called the Devouring Reef,
That
which
sounds
I think
pleasant.
is like
A good vacation
it's
spot.
It's almost like a Titan level. If a reef was like a what do they call a minor Titan?
Yeah.
That would be a minor Titan. It's that badass.
It is the Spiragos of Reeves.
It is the Spiragos of Reef. Yes. This is not that.
Yeah.
Wrecker's Reef is not, necessarily a sentient reef, but it is certainly a nasty reef. And because it's constantly covered in fog for reasons. I don't know if it's magic or if it's because.
And I always envision it like if you've seen How to Train Your Dragon. There is a scene where they're going through the fog and there's just like all these ships that are just like hanging on rocks and like just smashed to pieces because
I get a warm fuzzy feeling.
Yeah,
I watched the whole series on Netflix. I love How to Train Your Dragon.
It is one of my favorite movie series in general, not even just animation, but yeah.
I didn't watch the little kitty cartoons, but I did watch like the whole other series.
Yeah, nice.
Anyway, way off topic, but yes, like that reef,
right?
Like that fog, like that nastiness. So yeah, totally fog, nasty, and they've estimated that in the 150 years since the Divine War, there's been at least 1,000 shipwrecks there, which is
that's a lot of missing ships.
Shelzar is tracked. So I'm sure there's more that Shelzar.
Yeah, I was gonna say if that's just the ones they know about, then who knows?
Yeah, so who knows? Probably double that. So anyway, so think about and I think about it as just like an awesome place for really badass adventurers to go to like dig up treasure and stuff. Because 1,000 shipwrecks are going to be, if you're playing a Myr campaign, okay, we're going to play a bunch of Tritons and Scrags and we're going to go swim down there and just dig through shipwrecks and fight sea monsters. That would be a really cool game.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, great place to hold that. So they've been trying to build a lighthouse on Wrecker's Reef, and not much luck. It's like that Monty Python skit where they build the castle and sinks in the swamp. Just like it's collapsed 3 times, and they just can't build it, and maybe the reef is sentient and going, no.
Right? What is this? Get it
Shaking
off
it.
me.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that problem. So basically that reef is what protects, because the pirates know how to, well, some of the pirates know how to get around it. I'm sure many of those wrecks are pirate ships, but they know how to get around it. So that's why they use Cath Bay to hide.
Yeah. So does it talk much about what the pirates do in the lore? Or is it just kind of a generalized, this is where the pirates go?
And this is just some of the, because we know that they raid, there's a lot of trade, or a lot, I don't know how much a lot is, but there's a lot of trade between Termana and between the various southern, and actually all of Gelspath, really.
Yeah.
And all of everything but the North Coast, pretty much. So, and the only thing gets me, and maybe this is my like heavy magic thing, is like, why would you use a ship when you could teleport?
Totally.
But they do. So it's like, we just bring this bag of holding, they can move everything. But I mean, I guess there you have to like kind of make a decision about that. Is like, are wizards who can do that? Admittedly, to get that spell, you have to be pretty fucking high level.
Yeah. And Fran points out carrying capacity, because you can only teleport so much.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Carrying capacity is limited. So if you're trying to move something really big or a lot of something, yeah, ship's a better choice. But ship is going to be weeks or even months, depending on how far you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wave the other magic, which is almost all major ships have a sea witch, and sea witches specifically have spells to make ship go fast and to make ship stay safe. So like they can make the wind when there's no wind. They're like, there's a wind now, and they can do all sorts of things to make it possible to survive. And a lot of that's just hand waving color. It's like, well, my sea witch only has 3 spells per day. Well, you can do it anyway, hand wave.
Right. Stop trying to slow down the dialogue. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know, I think it's a personal thing with me that in my early days as a GM, I ran a lot of modules because I was a GM.
Yeah.
Actually, my really early days as a GM, I didn't run any modules, but I guess like in my mid-ish early days as a GM, I ran a lot of modules. And it was always like I had to get the players to point B.
Right.
Because so we had to get from Mithril to Town or whatever. And they were level 4. They weren't going to teleport or windwalk or anything useful like that. So I would dig out the Wandering Monster list and throw shit at them. And honestly, my players get really tired of that really soon. And they liked the leveling idea. Like, oh, we got XP.
Right.
They call it XP on the hook. So get travel XP every time. And so, like, they'd level, and I didn't give a shit what level they were generally. So I was using the rules, it's like, and they're like, we leveled, yay! And I was like, cool. You leveled. Make my encounters better. So I ran all these little modules, and they had to travel between the locations, and it was a pain in the ass. So like as later days as a GM, I'm just like, I don't want to run like 7 weeks of boat trips or ferry rides or walking through wilderness. It's just not interesting. And with 5th edition, I don't use XP like that anymore. Now I use like milestone XP.
Yeah.
So it's like you finished the thing, you leveled. And so XP on the hoof doesn't have as much meaning to it anymore. Any meaning at all, and in fact at all.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like, you find a friendly wizard to teleport to.
Fair enough.
So my argument here is like, so with all of this, if you're going to do a ship adventure, that's one thing. It's like, okay, we're going to run a pirate game, or we're going to run a good guy, what do they call them? There's a word for the people who are on the boats to fight the pirates.
Oh, are they privateers?
Privateers, yeah. So if you want to run a privateers game or maritime vigil or something like that, yeah, this is awesome. But if you just want to get your players from Town to Shelzar, long trip.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's a long trip. So, and yeah, so do that math. And don't ask me how long it takes to get to Tremana.
Forever.
But anyway, so cool adventures here. Cool adventures here on where Wrecker's Reef. Then we have Sandoval. Continue to move in that direction.
Yeah.
This is an old fort on an island, not the island where the rich people live, but a different island further south. And it's kind of neat because it's outside of the common law of the region. So since the Elzen Empire fell, it's not part of that anymore. It's not part of the Shelzar city-state, because Shelzar is not just the city, it's also like the surrounding countryside. It's outside of that. So it's pretty much Tortuga.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Pirates, rogues, mercenaries, the like live on this island. Think Pirates of the Caribbean, right up there. It's got a permanent population of 500 people, but that's mostly shopkeepers and weapon merchants and black market illegal stuff. Like, you want to buy Cadam's blood stuff? Buy it here. We've got Titan's blood up galore, or whatever other nefarious, materials you want to acquire.
Right.
Sandoval would be the place. So you want to run that pirate game? You need a Tortuga, but you want to be near Shelzar, and so you don't want to be in the Toe Mountains or in the middle of the Blood Sea. This is another alternative.
Yeah. A little slightly healthier, less toxic waste.
Yes, the water won't kill you and turn you into a mutant. So if you don't want to run a mutant fish game, put it here.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Fish. No, yeah, don't do that.
No, fish people. No. Alright, moving up. We talked about the city beneath the sea at all? I think I talked about that as part of Shelzar.
Yeah, we mentioned it during the Shelzar stuff, but...
Yeah, like some weird underground city. And then moving up, Shelzar itself, and then the Fort Ire. This is one of the last remaining old Elzen outposts. Basically, it's like a fort. Yeah, it's Fort Ire. It's a fort. It's a big tower fort. Wall buildings. It's sturdy. It survived the Bedouin War. So this is not a wooden fort. This is a big stone edifice. And the dwarves, Shelzar paid a bunch of dwarves to come and rebuild it for them after the war. Shelzari dwarves, because dwarves live in Shelzar, because every species lives in Shelzar. About 80 people who live there permanently, and it's a good spot for people to stop on trade routes between Shelzar and everywhere else, like Welsk and...
It has such a pleasant name. Fort Ire.
Fort Ire. Yeah.
Like Fort Anger or Fort I'm upset with you. Why?
There's a quote from Vigilant right there. You got on Skywarder's ire, and I didn't know he had one. Yeah. That's a quote from my novel. Yeah, so Fort Ire. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting name. So this place, it's a good spot. We need to stop for the night. Oh, look, there's a rak dragon attacking. Let's stay in this fort.
Yeah, right.
You could do shit with that. Okay. Let's see. Those are kind of... the coast of southern Galspad from Quells to Fang's Fall, the whole coast in that area is jagged and rocky and dangerous, and it's nicknamed Thunder Coast because it's very windy in that area, and there's like this roar when the water hits the rocks, and so that's kind of a nickname for that whole region. Let's see, and off of Calf Bay, north of Calf Bay, I've skipped this. There's Marrow Point. I debated should it be renamed Scrag Point.
Yeah.
Because aquatic trolls live there.
Right.
And in 5th edition, they've referred to them more as Scrag than Marrow. M-E-R. ROW. Because we've made Scrags a playable race now. Cool, which I think is really, I can play a troll, cool. So I think that's a neat thing to be from if you want to play a Scrag. And you're like, I'm going to leave home because they're kind of a bunch of jerks, and
Right.
I'm going to go wander off.
It is kind of an ongoing theme with a lot of the races. And it makes sense because there's a lot of, we're not going to call them evil races, but a lot of like violent tendency, evil tendency, culture of, you know, subduing others, killing others and all that. And some people are just like, I'm kind of done with this. I'm going to move out and go be an Ironbred. Tune in next week for Ironbred.
We traditionally, back in the day, called them Titanspawn, and now we call the playable variants Redeemed.
Right.
Because there was the whole thing of like, oh, and I love the confusing definition of Titanspawn, and we talked about this before, is what the fuck is a Titanspawn?
Right.
Made by a Titan? Evolved from Titan Yuck? Or worship Titans? Any of the three could be correct.
Right.
Although generally we say worship and or evolve from Titan Yuck. But then we have this whole redeemed, which is I was one of those things, or my people were one of those things, and I decided to not. And it's complicated because just because people worship a Titan doesn't or follow. I said worship is the wrong word. Revere, I guess, is the right word. Knee knuckle and terror is another. Knee knock and terror, no, knee knocking. It doesn't mean that they're evil. It just means that like they know that Lethena can come and kick their ass. But
right.
People are aware that the war happened. The Titans aren't around anymore, so unless they're following Deneb, it's like, what do you have to gain by following a Titan unless you're one of the rabid folks who want to bring them back?
Yeah.
So I think there'd be a lot of redeemed because unless you're rabidly culty and want to bring your Titan back, and you think most of the population doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the we'll talk about this more next week, but a lot of the races that decided to remain unredeemed were I think it's a cultural thing. Like they're not necessarily, some of them aren't necessarily like running around being like, oh, we have to bring back Mormo or whatever. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. And I think just culturally, those divine races that are the winners of the war are just calling them redeemed and unredeemed. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So if you're gonna play a Scrag, are you playing a redeemed Scrag, or what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what Titan the Scrags would follow.
Yeah.
They're trolls. I mean, like I don't even know if we wrote if it was written in the lore and Yugman's who even made the trolls. It could have been made by Manawe for all we know.
Right.
Like maybe they're a divine race. I don't even know. So, but you can play one, and a good place to be from is Morale Point, or as I said, maybe Scrag. Where were we? We've got. Sorry, I bounced back, but I missed that one. So I'm going this way. The Blossoming Sea is the sea itself. It's the Southern Sea, as opposed to the Blood Sea, which I don't know what the name of the Blood Sea was before. It was the Blood Sea, the Western Sea.
I mean, it was only 150 years ago, so you'd think. Well, it was probably more longer than that, because the end of the war was 150 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the wars took a while.
The war took some unspecified number of years because timey-wimey shit, but
so at some point, it was another sea.
It was another sea. Western Sea is the best sea. But anyway, so it's like kind of moving that way. Then back up to Fort Ire. You know, I'll just bounce around. There's the Vanishing River. This is neat. I think the Vanishing River is kind of cool, and they draw it funny on the map. There's like 2 rivers there, and that's because it moves. So it was the Amwari River prior to the to all of the events that happened. Thank you so much, Thulkas, for drying up the area. Um, there was a big fight with Thulkas and what is now the Sweltering Plains, and the river basically disappeared because it got dried up, and then it came back because rain happened again someday and snow melt, and it was like in a different place because the terrain had changed. But and then okay, fine, the river relocated. That happens, but then it vanished again and then moved again and then it would vanish and like not even just because it makes sense to have happened once because of the stuff that happened, but it seems to be repeatedly happening year after year where
Right.
you come down the coast to trade from Quelsk and go back, and then the next year you come down again and the river's in a different place. You don't know. It's like, where do we water our horses this time?
Right.
Okay, you've got to find it. Mysterious. So apparently moves all the time, and it's not clear why. And that's why they call it the Vanishing River. And why it appears funny in the map, because you don't know where it's going to be. Any point in time, there's like a 50-mile area or more that it could show up in.
Right.
So better bring a ranger with you, or a druid or something.
And lots of water. Bring lots of water.
And lots of water. And lots of water. Yeah. And then finally moving up, just north of Shelzar, there is the Golden Triangle. Before you hit the Sweltering Plains, it's a bunch of farmland, because Shelzar gotta eat. It's important. So this is their breadbasket, effectively, and they make enough food, more than enough food, to feed the nigh on million population of the city, or many hundreds of thousands of people. I don't think it's quite a million, but it's hundreds of thousands of people in the city, and more, and plus a ton to export. So this is a very verdant for Larry with multiple growing seasons throughout the year, because it's pretty much hot all year round. Think Florida, in terms of or southern U.S. in terms of weather. They have a lot of irrigation canals because it does get quite hot. I assume they use magic or something. I'm honestly just picturing a bunch of clerics or wizards or something taking seawater and going, desalinate.
Best cleric spell ever.
Yes. I don't know. Something. It's purify food and drink, desalinate.
Oh, that's a good question. We'll have to tweet that one out and see what answers we get.
I don't know, but because I don't know how much it rains in the area, but and there's a lot of orchards there too, which I think is neat. And what's the most fascinating part about it, I think, maybe not fascinating, but I think is interesting, is that in order to be on the city council in Shelzar, in order to have the clout to be on the council, you have to own at least 10 acres of land. Shelzar's not that big. I mean, it's big, but 10 acres is a lot for it's not a lot, but it's a lot for a city. It's like, I have that warehouse. That warehouse is not 10 acres, Bob. So all these noblemen have bought land out in the Golden Triangle to be on the council. So the triangle is divided up into these little 10-acre estates, but it's like there'll be this orchard that's like 50 acres owned by 5 noblemen.
Right.
So, but none of them live there. They just own the land.
Right.
So they don't live there. They barely have an interest in it. And they're like, did the figs do well this year? Good job, guys.
I don't care. I'm on the council.
I'm on the council. Yeah. So none of them live there. And so like, there's a bunch of other people who actually live there, but none of those people own the land. So it's kind of funky. But as a result, all those noblemen also have a monopoly on the food supply, because pretty much all the land in the Golden Triangle is owned by these council guys, and obviously many of them own more than 10 acres. And I could just imagine, like, I have 100 acres. Do you want to be on the council? I'll sell you a lot. There's a lot of power in that. They could buy and sell land to have power. I think it's kind of an interesting little political thing. If you care about playing around with Shelzar politics, I don't think most GMs do that much, but I think it's interesting. They grow figs, dates, cheese, melons, goats, oranges, coffee, silk, satin, cotton, linens, and dyes. Shelzar is way known for crazy colored dyes and bright colored clothing. And all Shelzar, and I think the coffee actually originated in Zafisk, but there's a lot of coffee houses in Shelzar,
Yeah.
and my players make this big deal about coffee. I think it's in real life. I mean, we live in Seattle, so right there. But we're all I think out of my gaming group, I think only one person grew up in this region, so we're all imported into Seattle, and so coffee is like a big deal, and so we always like coffee. So like my players are all like, yes, we'll be anywhere in the planet on Scarlands, and they'll be like, I get Shelzari coffee. So it's like a thing.
Right.
It's totally a thing. So I just imagine Turkish coffee, but you know, there's that Arabian feel, but I've also had Turkish coffee, and it can be flippin' amazing. So.
Yeah.
And it will leave you buzzing for a week, depending on the kind you drink. So Golden Triangle, pretty fun. Now that's the immediate region around Shelzar.
Okay.
Kind of fun places you can play with. And now moving beyond the land of Shelzar, we've got the Sweltering Plains, which, so if you head north.
So before we head off, sorry.
Yeah. Oh.
Do you want to talk about the firestorms, or do you want to talk about that with?
No, you talk about the firestorms.
So, we talked about the hole that was blown in the wall, and like where is it the new gate? Is that what it's called?
The new gate, yeah.
So if you're in Shelzar, there's a new gate that was built by dwarves that were hired by the nobles and everything, because
probably
there
the
was
same
a
guys who built
firestorm.
Fort Ire.
Right. There was a firestorm that was so bad. And firestorms, so you watch the movies and you see sandstorms coming over the desert, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's a sandstorm, everybody run, and they'll run away. Except for these are like superheated sandstorms, so they call them firestorms, and a firestorm blew that hole in the wall.
I mean, I think of it like, what was that movie with the dragons? That does not.
Oh, I know, the one with the dragons. Yeah, no, which one?
Yeah, Time of Dragons, or like Age of it was this, like, it came out in, like, I want to say it was the odds.
Do you know who was in it?
Huh? Oh, I don't know who was in it.
Was it modern era or fantasy?
Modern-ish, post-apocalyptic.
So was it Reign of Fire?
Reign of Fire, yeah, that's the one. It's post-apocalyptic dragons, yeah.
What movie is that? In 20 questions or less.
Yeah, but think like some of those scenes in Reign of Fire, where it was just like, whoosh, okay, it was dragons, and the firestorms in Shelzar are not caused by rat dragons,
right?
But that level of like holy shitness,
destruction, right?
Yeah, just destruction.
And it makes me laugh because like they only last for like 10-12 minutes at most.
Yeah.
Like they're really quick, but they're so violent and so destructive.
Like tornado almost.
They're hurricane level winds, 140 to 170 miles per hour.
It's insane.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in, like, that's like class outrageous hurricane.
Right. I like how.
Like,
so they, 5th edition doesn't have this, and I'm not even sure what it meant in 3rd edition because it never really happened. But medium or smaller sized creatures are blown away, and it's like done in a, like a status, like that's the status, right? They do fire damage. Essentially, it's like at the end of the description, it's a whole page description, and it's like in spotting the storm, you can kind of notice it maybe 30 minutes before, but it's like how does how does a character get away from it? It's like the best option are spells like rope trick, teleport, or something that just removes them. It's not like, hey, go hunker down. You don't do the whole like, I'm gonna pull my cape over my head so I don't suffocate from the sand. No, you're just gonna like barbecue if you do that. So there are these amazingly powerful storms that roll in off of the sweltering plains.
Yeah, and imagine how many people died when that wall was taken down, because they were all hiding behind it, because that was their only defense against this thing. But that's also a good explanation as to why the wall around specifically that western end of Shelzar is so fucking huge.
Yeah.
Because they get these things just frequently enough that it's a constant threat.
Yeah.
And why they needed to rebuild that wall so fast.
Yeah, it says on average less than once a year, but then to do it, to figure out every month you roll a d20. If you get a 20, so if your dice hate you and your game, they're just like firestorm every month.
Yeah.
Whew, it's the 2020.
Especially tabletop, I guarantee.
Right.
Seriously, we rolled 3 crits in a row. That does not happen in the real world.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, firestorms. Moving on. We're heading out into the sweltering plains.
A good description, though. Then that is truly a horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically just want to, teleport out or go underground.
Yeah.
All right. Sweltering plains. So sweltering plains are kind of like where the firestorms come from. So they're obviously a threat in that area. And I think, this is a fun little area to adventure in if you're good with very warm terrain. And honestly, pretty much, except for Fang's Fault, everything to kind of southwest of Shelzar is ridiculously hot. And even in your heading north, because your Caridian Desert is latitudinally up there with Hornsaw and the Blood Steppes and Verdant Tor, which are more temperate, but it's like the second hottest desert on Skarn, after the Crucible of On and Asherak. And did we talk Asherak yet? I don't think we talked Asherak.
No. I mean, we've mentioned it when we were talking about the creation and all of that. Yeah. But
so Sweltering Plains is further south, so it's not as hot as the Caridian, but it's pretty flippin' bad. Vastly hotter than those. Actually, it is hotter than vastly hotter than those of surrounding areas. So hotter, presumably, than the Festering Fields. I love these names. I think Festering Fields is probably my favorite.
Festering Fields isn't
it's
on
just
this
you get
map,
an image.
So I'm gonna have to hide it.
But
there we go. There's the Festering Fields.
But first, the Sweltering Plains. Let's cover this Sweltering Plains. We'll get to the Festering Fields in a few minutes. Sweltering Plains. Deadly plains rendering unnatural beasts that have adapted to the heat live there. So basically, take your wandering monster table and just give everything
heat resistance or
immunity to heat. Yeah. It's like you need, you want to throw in some goblins. They're heat immune goblins. Whatever it is you want to have there. And was this where? No, I think it's in that. Was this where Spragos was, or was that in the Festering Fields?
I feel like it was Festering Fields, but it's been a while since I looked at it.
So the interest in this area mostly is this place called the Scar, which is about dead metal. It's one of those. Scarred Lands has a lot of these
gouges.
Chasms.
Yeah.
We are big on chasms. There's just big chasm fans. We had the one in the Dragonlands, which is freaking huge. And there's a lot. Like you wander over. Like I think every continent just about has one.
Yeah.
Or two or more.
At least that are on continent-sized map worthy.
Yeah, I'm convinced one of the original authors went to the Grand Canyon and he's like, I'm going to put this in everything. So the Scar is like mini Grand Canyon. It's not like the length of the Grand Canyon by any means, but it's and it varies. It's like in places it says a lot. So in places it is a mile or more deep, which doesn't sound like a lot until you actually see something that's a mile deep and you're like, you
don't want to fall down that.
Miles don't feel long when you're going. I mean, I've walked 5 miles before. Right? They don't, tiring, but it's not unheard of. But going down a mile, that's a lot.
Yeah.
If you're doing Featherfall, you're gonna have to cast it multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
5,000 something feet in a mile. I don't know exactly.
5280.
people who went to public primary school.
I also live like an hour from the Mile High City, so it's really hard to forget when you live here. Everyone's like, there's magazines called 5280, so.
Okay, I went to private primary school, and they did not make us memorize the number of feet in a mile. I had to do other weird things inside. I went to public junior high and high school, but private elementary. Anyway, so over 5,280 feet long. Many, which is what's a feather falls like 60 around, and it only lasts
Something
a minute.
like that, yeah.
So your feather fall, you're gonna have to cast it several times.
Yeah,
to
you just want to wait till you're
falling.
almost to the bottom, and then cast it.
Yeah, that's what you pretty much want to do. It's like do the parachute thing, if you can see the bottom.
Right.
So there's that little problem. Plus, it goes up to 10 miles wide, which is like you can't cross this.
Yeah.
Right? So up to a mile deep, up to 10 miles wide. So it's a pretty awesome canyon, and that does sound Grand Canyon-ish. It's not as many miles long. That's about the only difference. But it's not. It's longer than 10 miles long, I believe. Well, not even on this map, so I couldn't tell you, but it's on that map. So it's pretty long compared to Shelzar. I mean, it's there. So the Scar, and Scar's interesting because there's these well, this is the old edition, so they refer to them as half orcs because they're supposed to be playable.
Yeah.
But they're orcs, and now that you can play an orc, I just imagine they're orcs, and maybe some half orcs in there, but I imagine the population is mostly orcs. And what's the silly about the orcs of the Scar is they call them the Uruk-hai. And I'm like, did the Tolkien estate sue Sword and Sorcery for this?
Right.
Urkhadi, which is spelled differently, barely. And I'm like, and then they're described as dark-skinned, dark-haired. So when did Lord of the Rings come out?
The movies or the
Two Towers
books?
come out? The movies. Two Towers come out like 2001, and then this book was like 2002, 2003. They look like the freaking Uruk-hai from
Right.
the Two Towers. Come on. So.
Although I feel a little sad about the update from 3rd to 5th edition because it was a group of half-orcs and it was like their bastion. It was their like because the orcs were up in the northern Morton Marshes. Plains of Lead, thank you.
Yeah.
And so like there was this little bastion of safety for the half-orcs, which were, really not most often the products of love, we'll call it that. And therefore, like, this was a place for these people to flee to and hide, and so it was like there was an extra level of like depth that went into it, and now they're just like, hey, but they're all orcs again.
They didn't specify. I don't think they talked. Did they talk about this card? This thing in the SRD? The SLPG?
They do talk about trying to think of where they mentioned it. Essentially, they're just like really half orcs don't exist until they do again.
They don't exist, but they're rare.
Right.
But now they're back.
Right.
Because thank you, Yugman's guides. So
Yugman's.
you could have the Scar be this cool haven of half orcs.
Yeah.
Children
I just thought it was such a neat idea. Like
parents, yeah.
If you're a DM and you want to use it, do it. Don't have to listen to.
Oh hell no.
5th edition.
No. I mean, I'm as I've said before, a big fan on consistency.
I do appreciate consistency, so that is like one of the sad parts about Scarbands.
I've joked before. My other big fandom is Doctor Who, which is the ocean of discontinuity. Doctor Who and Star Wars. Like, I'm fans of things where the continuity does not. But I make it my job to make sense out of the madness that is things with no continuity. So, topography. District 119. So I'm on the fly looking at this.
We can look at it later. It's all right.
199. I'm on the fly looking at this to see what they say about the Scar, if they say anything at all.
Yeah.
Because I have my doubts. Sweltering something something. Come on. The Ganges Forest, the Fernico. Come on, where's the Verdant Desert, Splintered River, Ganges Forest, Blossoming Sea, Bleak Savannah. Do I see the sweltering plains anywhere? I don't even see the sweltering plains. Maybe they've got their own. I don't know those ones. So I don't even see anything about the sweltering plains in here. So oh wait, here it is. Southern Gelspad. My bad. It has 2 whole paragraphs. Blah, blah, blah. I'll just read them. Like the bleak savanna far to the north, the sweltering plains suffer from a mysterious climatological condition. The temperature here is unnaturally high for its latitude. There is no decent explanation for this phenomenon, despite attempts to determine the cause via divination. Some scholars argue that the great heat results churns. Churns? Or variably Thulkos. Thulkos, come on, people. Essence infecting the region. Churn was buried in the morning marshes.
So if you head over to
people.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
keep reading.
Few people have the desire or wherewithal to visit this cloyingly humid wasteland, except for the iron-bred who call it home, and the small yet thriving tribe of the peaceful Uruk-hai orcs, who live in a quaint temperate valley known as the Scar and spend their days in quiet contemplation as they tend their farms. Boy, You're right, they totes changed those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in this book, they're like Klingons in this book. Holy crap. Uruk-hai, a unique tribe of half-orcs, dark-skinned and black-haired, who, through some unknown magic or other phenomenon, breed true and have become a wholly distinct people.
Yeah.
Culturally, they draw from the Elzen heritage. This was the Empire of Elves area.
Right.
They favor double weapons in combat, which the Jewish tribes like double weapons, like Klingons.
And I think that whole Elzen heritage thing is why their skin tone was different, because a lot of the people in Shelzar and the Elzen Empire were darker skinned, and so their half orc or their orc their human lineage actually made a different skin tone, which reasons
all the orcs are green.
Right.
Yeah. So I just think it's green, dark, very dark green.
Yeah.
With blackish green. And their numbers have grown. Uruk-hai claim relatives. Uruk-hai legend relates that the plains were the forge of Corian. This is cool. This is cool. Weird but cool. So it doesn't say anything about them being farmers in here, but it doesn't say they're not. It doesn't say they're warlike necessarily. It does talk about their weapons, but so are they friendly farmers living in the bottom of a mile-deep chasm, which wouldn't get a lot of sunlight because mile-deep chasm?
I mean, they could grow mushrooms, right?
You don't get... So, you know...
They are the world's largest magic mushroom outlet.
If it's 10 miles wide and a mile deep, you would get sunlight in the middle of it. Just not near the edges.
True.
You know? So you could get... Yeah, because I don't think a mile-high mountain doesn't create a shadow that's 10 miles long, except for certain times of the day. So yeah, you could farm in it in the middle. so yeah, I guess there's farms anyway, cool shit. But anyway, I want to read this bit because I like this bit because this is like one of the weird Scarland lore things. Their legend relates that the plains were the forge of Corian during the Divine War, and that the Scar Valley is the wound caused by Vangel's axes when the god clove Corian's anvil in two in a fit of anger. Those few non-Uruk-hai who have heard this legend dismiss it as foolishness, claiming that Vangel and Corian never came to blows during the Divine War. But if the history of Skarn has proven one thing, it is that truth is often stranger than any fantasy.
Interesting.
It's a great line.
Yeah.
So I like that about this place. I mean, I don't think that Corian and Vangel came to blows either, but they didn't sit. But the legend isn't that they came to blows. The legend is that Vangel got pissed and broke his anvil. He could have done it when Corian was away. No, didn't tell me he was gonna do that and break his anvil. So I could picture that. I find it interesting though the idea that Corian put his little. I mean, the description of him having a smithy, because he made the sword honor that he used to defeat Golthaga in the war, and I always and then we know they fought. We're flipping here, and we know Golthaga had a home in the southern Keldars, and there's a bunch of giants there who worship him. So, and we know this Corian's cleft was during that fight and using honor to fight Golthaga. He made this giant. He missed him at one point and made a giant cleft in the middle of the continent because colossal gods. But did he build the sword way over here? I mean, okay, it's only like 1,500 miles away, and he's a god, so if he's big enough to have made that cleft, that's like 5 footsteps, right?
Right.
I don't even know. Where you look up and how tall did the gods?
I mean, when you talk about like the Divine War, and there's the whole scene with the mithril golem fighting Kadum and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, all I can see is Godzilla. So I mean, freaking huge. Yeah. They are huge.
But we're not talking miles tall. We're talking
many stories.
1,000 feet. We're talking 1,000 feet tall. Like we just talked about how big a mile is. So a fifth of a mile tall.
About a fifth of a mile.
So his head would not pass the top of the scar. Climb the scar in 5 steps. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I completely agree that. But the thing about the gods is they're what is it? Something they can change their size at will.
Yeah.
So they can be like human sized or halfling sized or flippin' Godzilla sized. Unlike the Titans, who some of the Titans can change their size at will, like say Mormo, who could turn into just snakes. But some of the Titans can't. Like Kadim, who's just a big Godzilla.
Yeah. I feel like Mormo would have to say she's just like snakes, and then she just turns into snakes.
Like I'm snakes,
right?
I'm people again. Yeah. So, but I can imagine she'd be like, I'm not going to use all the snakes this time, and I'm only going to be 6 feet tall.
Right.
And just like 6 snakes instead of 5,000. So, I can imagine Mormo doing that. But so Corian could be like, I'm going to be 1,000 feet tall, so I can go fight. Golthaga. So anyway, my point is I could easily picture Vangel having a pissy moment where he's like, Corian was supposed to help us fight Kadim, and he just sent this stupid silver thing.
Right? What the hell is this?
What was he doing? And he goes off to find him.
He's not even answering his cell phone. What a
Corian's
dick.
already ditched off to go deal with Golthaga, and he finds his anvil, and he's like, damn it, he's not even here, and he breaks the anvil. Yeah. Picture that.
A picture being the people that were on the ground when it happened. Fuck!
Yeah. I can picture that. I can totally imagine that.
Deities just don't think about the consequences of their actions.
Well, particularly Vangel.
Yeah.
Vangel does not give a...
I was going to say, you kind of have to care about consequences.
It was Vangel who threw Kadim in what became the Blood Sea. It was Vangel who destroyed the Haggard Hills. It was so of God of Skarn who did the most direct damage, not counting the Seraphic engine itself.
Right.
I would put money on Vangel.
Yeah, that's totally fair. What a dick.
So, did Vangel make the scar?
Oops, I turned the ocean into blood. Yep. Yeah.
I would put money on Vangel making the scar.
I could see it.
But I would also say that no, I don't think he and Corian directly came to blows during the war, because that doesn't make any sense either. So anyway, I love that legend, and I love that there's these orcs, half orcs, whatever you want to make of them.
Yeah.
That are maybe Elzen living in the bottom of this thing with resistant to heat and farming something that does well in heat.
Right. Sand. They're farming sand.
I don't know why. So that's fun. Okay. Do we have anything else to say about the Sweltering Plains? And the other thing about the Urkai, though, they follow Deneb.
Right.
And they follow the Ushada. They're not followers of the divine, of the gods, and they're not followers of any of the evil titans. So that's interesting. So you're not going to find much. You're not really going to find clerics or paladins among them. You're going to find druids and those kind of healers. So that's kind of interesting. And because there's this whole seat of, particularly in Termana, of tribal people following the spirits that you shot at. And this is just another example of that. So, but there's fewer examples of that in Gelsvad. So I think that's neat. There's another like tribal shot of following people here. So I think it's not too bad. And also these orcs have alliances with Shelzar, and a lot have moved to Shelzar. So you could really easily play one of these darker skinned. So it's like, I want to play an orc who's dark skin instead of green skin.
Yeah.
You could be one of these orcs or half orc or whatever. So I think that's kind of fun. Maybe they're like orcs, but they're just a little bit like we were half orcs, but now we're more pure orcs.
Well, yeah, the way that they phrase it, where like they're breeding true. So essentially, like when a half orc and a half orc are having a baby, they're having a half orc again. That's not shifting colors. That isn't, they're not like all of a sudden, mostly orc or whatever. They're remaining this like kind of new species that is the half orc. It was an interesting way to phrase it, yeah.
And I think in 5th edition, if you wanted to play them as whether a half orc or a orc,
totally fair, yeah.
Either. Yeah, totally fair. They could do either. So, but if you want to be like, I want to play an Uruk-hai from Lord of the Rings, who's not evil,
right? They can actually say like words instead of just says
Where is Frodo? I will go.
Find the halfling. Find them.
Oh god. That was great. I love those movies. I need to rewatch them. All right, moving north to Festering Fields.
Oh, the Festering Fields.
I think that it's up there as my favorite alliteration in the Scarlands.
And there are a lot.
There are a lot. The morning marshes.
Are the Sutak more in the Festering Fields or the Sweltering Plains?
I don't know. I think they're more in the Festering.
I'm just going to throw up the art of the Sutak, and I'm going to throw up the 3rd edition and then the 5th edition.
Oh yeah. Sutak are fun.
Yeah.
So, horse people. We talked about cat people.
Yeah.
We talked about rat people.
Yeah.
What else have we just talked about cat people? I think there's another 2 we talked about. So these are horse people.
Yeah.
Sutak in 3rd edition, because they were Titan spawn. They were only monsters, and basically, Thulkas fanatic assholes, who were like, if you're going into the desert, you're gonna run into these mofos.
Right.
They're gonna beat you up. So they were just a really cool Scarlands monster, with kind of this equine vibe.
Yeah, they were kind of. For some reason, I keep thinking that they were kind of. No, maybe I'm thinking something else. I'm not even gonna bring that up. What kind of kills me is. So they're horse people, and I feel like the 3rd edition art did fairly well with that. Like.
Yeah.
They're a little demon-y looking.
Yeah. I never used them in all of my campaign. I never. And we even I went to the Recruiting Desert. I literally ran everywhere in the Scarlands except Calastia. And now I'm running, in Calastia. But I've run everywhere, and I never used them. Because they were just like a blip. They were like in one creature collection, and they really, they were just like another monster. And
it's true, they were just absolutely another monster. And I think the only times I've ever seen them used are now in 5th edition because of the Iron Bread, which we'll see you next week for that one.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
The incarnates, the people who they're druids who can turn into other things. I've seen NPCs and players use the Sutak as like a former life, and so they would turn into a Sutak.
Which case, because they're badass in terms of like a monster.
They are pretty cool.
The immunity to fire and elements of that. And I think, as followers of Thulkas, if you want to play around with the Titan of Fire, this is the race.
Yeah. So I threw up the 5th edition art here. and I'm not saying it's bad art because it isn't bad art, but I'm just not really sure I like it for the Sutak
It creeps me
because
out.
I mean, they're super like fucked up looking, and
Yeah.
the Ironbred are not, and the
Yeah, I
Ironbred
agree with
again
that.
next week are literally Sutak that just have chosen. I no longer want to be a dick, and so I'm gonna
Yeah.
go not be a dick. But it didn't make them look healthier. It didn't make them look. I mean, this guy looks like he's got something going on. I don't even
It
know what
looks
that
more like a
is.
follower of Churn than Thilkas.
Right, right. So
like, like that's some nasty stuff going
no,
on there. Like,
no
what
offense
happened to
to
your
the
face, Bob?
artist. I just that's not how I personally portray them.
Yeah,
More like
yeah.
the original art because
I
they
mean,
were
the
actually
teeth
horse.
are right in terms of like looking like a horse, but and I like the armor and the legs, but the rest of the face is just.
Yeah, he's got some problems.
Although you
Maybe
run into
he
this guy, you'd be intimidated.
right,
But
right.
yeah, I kind of like the other one better. But I agree with you. I like the other one better. And he's still got the funky teeth and the funky legs. You know, the only difference is he's in black and white, so you don't get the detail.
So if you want to know more about the Ironbred, join us next week.
Hopefully, things going well because next Wednesday they're going to be releasing the hopefully.
Yeah.
Things going well. Next Wednesday they'll release the book on the Ironbred.
It's the new Vigil Watch, right?
Vigil Watch, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet.
Their city, it's called.
Exciting.
On the map. Just on the map. But yeah, they're one of the new public. So yeah, so I never used them because they basically had a page, and while they were a sentient species, they weren't necessarily. They didn't have a book basically because back in the day, the Slytherin had a book, the Asathi had a book, the Orcs didn't have a book, but you knew them from other D&D stuff.
Right.
So, but the Sutek had 2 pages. You know, there was nothing substantial. So yeah. I just never used them.
Yeah, they were literally just a monster. To throw in.
They were a sentient monster minion type, but you know you could have a Sutek's raiders, goblin-esque kind of encounter. You know, heavier than a goblin, more like a hobgoblins or bugbears or something like that. They were on the same threat level as gnolls or bugbears. So, and then yet there's less spoken about them than there is about the freaking gnolls. So, gnolls have a whole section in the Termana book. Okay. So, festering fields.
Festering fields.
Sounds so, but festering, does that not put a nasty?
Right.
I think of like, you know, some kind of
popping pustules and grossness.
Yeah, grossness. And I could see what people would have named it to that. Would think that's where Churn is interred.
Weird.
Why the festering fields are there? Yeah. So they say in this book, they were part of this Zathiski empire, which I think is interesting because, my guess is because the Elzen Empire was supposed to spread from the Sweltering Plains through Delphos March. I thought the Festering Fields was part of the Elzen Empire, but maybe it became part of Zathisk after Els fell, because Els fell before the war.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Sigith took over, and then the Charduni business happened, and then the war happened, and then it's just a mess, and no one lives there anymore. Although that's kind of where I was envisioning. I don't know how Els is. I don't know where the city of Els is like.
It's wherever you need it to be as a DM.
Wherever you need to be. It's right in the middle of the Mounds of Man.
Right.
So, what the Mounds of Man? What is the Mounds of Man? That's all I didn't do enough research on all of this stuff. All of these ones.
I mean, there's so many features down in this area. There's a lot to keep track of.
I
don't even remember what that is.
The Mounds of Man don't really have much of a description. That's like, why didn't I research them? Because they're not here. They're mentioned by like everyone else, so I'm assuming they're just hills that suck less. Maybe, I don't know. People the humans lived in. It feels like something that feels like an Elzen Empire, probably a border, the northern border of the Elzen Empire, maybe. But Festering Fields is a thing that exists now, and it's even nastier than the Sweltering Plains. pretty nasty, home of monsters and things. The rumor is the destruction of a Titan, and I think this is where Sporagos comes into play. I haven't run any of those 3 modules, so there's a series of modules out on DriveThru. I believe the first one is either
Dagger.
Is the first one free or cheap? The dagger, the Gauntlet of Sporagos, Dagger of Sporagos, and the.
I know it was free for a short while. I will find it. And put
it's almost always on sale if it's not free, but it's one of the 2 introductory modules for Scarred Lands. The other one being the Serpent Amphora.
It is currently free, and I'm going to put the link for the 5e and the Pathfinder version in the chat.
Does anyone play Scarred Lands Pathfinder? So yeah, I believe this is where the first story of Sporagos takes place. And then when they're talking about a defeated Titan, I'm pretty sure that's who they're alluding to, or not who they're alluding to, because back in here, Sporagos wasn't a thing, and he became a thing when Pathfinder / 5th edition was introduced to Scarland. But I suspect that this is the source that came from. And what's interesting to me, and I made this argument, I've probably talked about this before, about there's only 13 Titans, and who the heck is this Sporagos guy? And then the explanation was given me by the powers that be that he is a lesser Titan, which to me is like Anushada has, got too big for their britches.
Yeah.
Didn't wander off to...
Or something the Titans made that was just like more powerful than general, but like they could easily squish it still, because I don't think they would be like, other than the gods, and that was their mistake, they wouldn't have made anything that could like really
yeah. So I think of it as an Ushada that just got really big, but didn't go to the Nameless Orb to nom on it.
And it would make sense. I feel like we need to do an Ushada episode, but like Ushada are often like animals, and Sporagos is a spider. So
I mean, I'm thinking Mr. Devouring Reef up there is lesser Titan level power.
That would totally make sense.
So, and which would be like super spirit shot. Although that thing is made out of was a reef that ate a bunch of Gorak's teeth and got big. Right. And got sentient and was like, I can't move, but
there's nothing even. I know this is completely off topic, but there's nothing even saying that these lesser Titans don't even not exist anymore. I went the wrong direction in my sentence structure there, but like creatures that could be considered lesser Titans, like that reef, might have been created afterwards, and they might be titanic in power because of nomming on parts. It totally makes sense. I like this concept of these like somewhere in between like the Ushada and the gods and all that. There's these creatures that have this crazy amount of power. They're like CR 30.
Like the Thrask.
Absolutely.
Sure. So you can and even Queen Ran is basically turning into one.
Yeah.
So you could argue Queen Ran is a lesser Titan at this point.
Absolutely.
But she became that way because Kraken eating Kadam's blood. So yeah.
We'll talk about her on another episode too, because I feel like she could be almost an episode to herself. She's fun.
She's a lot.
Yeah.
And yes, I've used Queen Ran many a time in my D&D campaigns. She's one of those NPCs that just shows up and causes chaos. Yeah. So anyway, so this is where Sporagos probably came from. And things here found in the Festering Fields. There is some flora and fauna, not a lot. Some scrubs that don't die of malnutrition. But the main thing you're going to find in terms of fauna are undead. Are undead fauna?
Yay! That's a really good question. I guess it depends on the scholar you're talking to, because some are going to argue, obviously, that they are fauna because they are a creature. They have a creature type.
So, the Festering Fields, land of zombies. I mean, not necessarily zombies, but land of just nasty various undead one mucking about. Um, and no, it's not super far from Hochhalter and Western Hornsaw, where it's another home of undead, and Hollow Faust, another the land of. This is really the Festering Field is where the undeadness kick starts in this whole basic region. So yeah, and you're gonna find all sorts of nasties in this area, and we'll talk about Hellfest as well, because there's a whole book on that area. We haven't done Hellfest yet. So there's, and just because we love them, there's yet another chasm,
right,
in the Festering Fields. Like I said, there's chasms everywhere. This one's not as big as the Scar by any means, but it is it's a blasted ground like a gaping maw in the earth. Its faces are riddled with monster-infested caves and small rivers infused with necromantic residue. Necromantic residue?
I mean, it was in Ghostbusters.
It's a green slime? I have a feeling like it's probably like black,
right?
not green.
Well, so the opening scene of Ghostbusters, when they go down to the library and there's like all of there's the one aisle that's just like dripping with goop. Just imagine an entire chasm that's like got goop just seeping out of holes in that.
I make the one argument that it's probably not ectoplasmy like Ghostbusters in terms of coloration.
Yeah, that's fair.
I suspect it's black because there, at least in the 3rd edition, necromancies and undead and all that is associated with a negative energy plane.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the color of the vibe.
Yeah.
So I picture it more like a sticky tar.
Ew.
I mean, maybe less viscous than tar.
Yeah.
Because tar doesn't flow very well. So like a more liquidy.
Have you played Death Stranding?
Tar-like substance.
I just started playing Death Stranding last night, so it's completely great timing.
Oh yeah.
It is.
Like
it is absolutely the stuff that you see in that game. It's this like goopy black stringy grossness that.
Yeah. So I'm replaying Dragon Age Inquisition right now.
Oh, nice.
And there's some shit like that, and they're like where this black stuff would appear around your feet, and there's this black shadows when you're walking around the Fade. So that's kind of what I was picturing, is like that like just the horror, the horror
totally
of pools of necromantic. I don't think of necromantic though. I just think of it as negative energy of necrotic. I think is what they would call it. In 5th edition, it would be necrotic.
Right.
Stuff. Basically, bad don't touch.
and I know we haven't talked about it
already
yet.
A zombie.
Right. We haven't talked about it yet, but Hollow Faust, I can just see like there being like daily field trips over to the Chasm of the Lost. They're just like, bring your petri dishes. Come on, everybody.
Probably weekly, not daily, but yes, I can completely imagine.
I mean, with teleportation.
Oh, that's true. It's like, we're gonna teleport to Western Fields and get us some goop.
Right. They've actually like put several circles around. 5th edition came out and they're like, oh, we have teleportation circles, and they just start putting them everywhere over there so they can go collect samples.
It takes a year to build one, though. It takes a year to build a teleportation circle. It's a heavy investment, and each time you pass it costs. They are necromancers, so maybe there's a teleportation circle in the middle of the flippin'. I don't know. Necromancers are weird. They could have done it. If you want to put one there into the Chasm of the Lost.
Oh, Fran does point out a good point, or bring up a good point. Do you really want a circle there? Who might come the other way? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. I was like, what if there's a vampire living there? It's like, ooh.
Right. You just go, oh, look, a circle. I've got this person's phone number. I'll go to their house. Bloop. Hello.
Yeah.
This is my invitation, right?
and not only do undead live there, but also abominations.
Yay.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
And demons. So abominations. I'm picturing what are they called? The monster type. The same monster type that like. Mind flayers.
The holders, Aberrations.
Aberrations. Thank you. I knew there was a word.
Yeah.
It starts with an A. Aberrations. They say abominations. Is abomination an aberration?
When I'm doing creature design, I tend to like anything that is outside of nature. So abominations are either undead or aberrations. Like monstrosities are more like animals that are just fucking weird. You know.
Yeah.
And they used to in third edition they had monstrous humanoids, and I feel like they had monstrous animals too. I feel like
third edition way more subclasses. Than
the fifth, and it made a
really
like I miss Outsider as a
me too,
because there were so many things that don't fit into Celestial or Fiend that are now mushed into being, or they put them in aberrations, which I don't think makes sense. But hey, that's just
I miss Outsider.
Yeah, I thought Outsider was awesome.
Yeah. Although Outsider was OP, was super
oh, they could be.
Oh my god, because they give them everything.
So there's a bit of lore that talks about, and this is brought up in the Dragonlands section of Strangelands, where it's talking about things that could be under the Abomination section. It's actually part of why. Did we actually talk about the Dragonlands? Can't remember.
We did talk about the Dragonlands, but I didn't go into super detail.
So there's the rules, like like the Emperor put out these rules. You can no longer breed with the lesser
breeding.
Right. Yeah. Because back in the day they were like making these armies to fight and everything, and they were like breeding with outsiders. That is I mean, when you have like beholders you can't really breed with because that's not how beholders work. But if you were like, I made a spell so I could fuck that, they have like a beholder dragon, that would be an abomination, absolutely, in my book. So that's the kind of shit that lives in that chasm.
Beholder dragons.
I mean, yeah, why not? So I mean, these things that.
Well, I don't know where the dragons would have come from. I mean, I'm picturing more like gibbering mouthers.
Oh yeah, totally.
Something that the party could actually like face. And
I just feel like as a DM, if you want to make shit up, like monstrous, terrible shit for Scarred Lands, it came from that whole thing where the dragons were interbreeding abominations and aberrations. They were just like, let's see what we can come up with. And the Silurians.
I mean, to me, everything twisted and fucked up comes from the Silurians.
Yeah. But they do say a lot of the shit died that the dragons made, but you know that not everything did, and it's running around fucking somewhere.
So there's undead but there's abominations, and there's potentially aberrations, and there's what was the third one? Demons. So
demons.
If you want to throw a demon beholder, if you've got a really high level fifth, who the hell is a high level 5th edition party?
Yeah, because remember, it only goes to only tier 1 and 2 get any attention.
Yeah, I missed that. I think we need. I want to know what I want to be in a game that gets past level 15.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
And B, see what you actually can counter in tier 4. Because I haven't run one yet, and that's on me. But I haven't. Everybody seems to want to start, and then tier goes before you get there. But I haven't played one yet.
Yeah.
And because every time we're playing in one, we get to around 13, 14, and then we wrap up the campaign.
Right.
And it's like.
I've only played 2. I think I've only played 2 campaigns that weren't, like. I can't think of anything that was published actually that I've played. But homebrew stuff, that was epic level. That was like 15 and above. Like we went beyond level 20, and I mean shit gets weird because the DM has to make it that way. You can't just be like, you can do your what? Sorry.
The boons. When you get to level 20, you just start getting weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like you can do as far as your play style, I cannot think of the word. Like you have your castle and you're, being a lord and all of that kind of stuff. That intrigue kind of stuff.
Okay.
But as an adventurer, that's not really where I've ever enjoyed going. So I'm just like, let's go to fucking outer space and kill space beholders.
I've played in plenty of earlier edition epic games. I mean, I've run them. I ran a game where the party were in the 20s.
Yeah.
You know, they were level 22, 23. And in fact, Doofus in Vigilant, who at the end of Vigilant is like level 6.
Yeah.
Is at the end of the campaign level 22.
Nice.
So if I actually write all of these books and continue with that, at the end of the series, he would be epic, definitely.
In 3rd edition epic, not 5th edition.
But
epic.
Pathfinder.
Yeah, Pathfinder actually works really well.
1st edition Pathfinder.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at 2nd edition. But in terms of 5th edition, yeah, I've played now 4 of the those mega, you know, Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
You know, Ride the Tiamat. I've played like a bunch of those, and they don't go beyond 15th level.
I think I feel like there's one. It might be the Tales from the Yawning Portal.
Tales from the Yawning Portal.
That gets you above 15.
That I haven't played yet.
Yeah.
That I haven't played yet. But of the ones I have played, which I've played about 4 now, they get to that. And I ran Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. And I was just like, and we'll continue this. I'll come up with more plot, and we'll continue this later. And then COVID happened.
Right.
So that game died.
It's always something.
Yeah, we wrapped that up in last fall, and then I was thinking, I might get back to it next spring.
Which meant was next spring.
Yeah.
So we have completely
anyway, we're way
derailed.
up. That wasn't even Scarred Lands, and
right?
Now I'm running Scarred Lands via VTT. So
yay!
So that with a different group of people.
Yeah.
With a overlapping group of people, but a little bit different. Anyway, so Festering Fields. One last thing to talk about. We went off on a tangent, didn't we?
I know, right?
There's this place called the Last Watchtower.
The
Last Watchtower. Toward the southern end, and sort of kind of east of the Mounds of Man, so I picture it like here-ish. Like that doesn't help. I'm pointing in the map that's like way far away from camp.
It's pretty much central on the map now. That's showing up for everyone.
This is basically a dungeon. It's a great place to be like, there's a dungeon here.
Yeah.
You can do all sorts of cool shit with it. You know, it's the remnant of the ancient Velanon, which totally sounds like something out of Dragonlance. The Watchtower now has some enigmatic and secretive evil. So, some have speculated the tower holds the awesome necromantic force that destroyed Great Velanon. What the hell is Velanon? So Velanon has to be pre-Elzen Empire, right?
Yeah.
So, that's old. Although it says perhaps even the remains of the treacherous clerics that doomed the city maybe Velanon was one of the unnamed cities, 7 cities, because we only named 4 of them, so maybe Velanon.
Could be.
And they didn't really go into details how they fell, so maybe this is one of the 7 cities of Elves, and there was like some clerics who betrayed them to necromancy, and bad shit happened, and that's why it was destroyed.
I like it.
I don't know, but
yeah.
that would fit that whole everything else. And when light shines, any undead in the area functions if it was under the effect of a double strength desecrate spell. So like undead that like light, that you. This is like let's throw a little Ravenloft in the middle of Scarred Land right there. Like you could totally do that. So
I found the Mounds of Man.
Yay. Oh, we found the Mounds of Man. Oh, cool.
So between the Festering Fields and the sweltering plains are situated the lonely and allegedly haunted, hills known as the Mounds of Man. They're thusly named after the belief that the earth has settled over grotesquely enormous piles, multiple piles of corpses swept by the gods off of the ancient battlefield. So essentially, like, after a war...
they're literally Mounds of Man!
Somebody just went and swept them over, and then there's just, like, dirt has settled over them. Some joke that Duna Hay's Wall of Bones would be finished in short order should those people mine these hills for bones. But no one neighboring that place would be so flippant.
Because you'd have to get through the Festering Fields to get there.
Yeah, right.
If you came south, it wouldn't be as bad. Oh,
Yeah, so essentially there's
what
just
pages? Where did you find this
it
reference?
was actually in the Gazetteer for
The
Gelspad.
Gazetteer, of
Yeah,
course, the Gazetteer.
because
I always forget to look there.
there's so many, like the Gazetteer was like the toned down version of the
Came
campaign
first.
book, but sometimes there were
Yeah,
like these little nuggets in there.
it was
Um,
great nuggets.
so yeah, it's a another undead infested area. Yay!
It's literally mounds of man.
Yeah,
I give them credit for descriptive, meaningful.
and you got your alliteration in there too, even though there's the of in
Well,
between,
and Elastic Scarland's alliteration.
right?
I need to figure. I need to find out. Was it was it Anthony Pryor or I don't think it was Joe. I want to find out which of the original authors was the alliteration king.
Right.
Like who was behind all of this alliterative madness
Right.
that is so prevalent? It's something because there's so much of it. It's wonderful, but oh god, it's expressive. So and then final location that I wanted to cover
Yeah.
is the Devil's March, which is a bit far, but this is really the only time to talk about it because it's not part of anywhere else. And even though it's a bit further away, but it was part of the Elzen Empire, so still falls with outside of Shelzar region. And I love it as when I talk about so in 5th edition I introduced a concept for a ranger terrain type called Titan Scarred favorite terrain, and because rangers can be like, okay, I can do woods or desert, as your terrain type and as your favorite terrain, and there's just so many, and I was like, I like the idea that there are particularly vigilance or other kind of I want to heal the environment rangers, so maybe like some of the rangers associated with the Jorde or folks who are like, we want to heal the land, who specifically study the places the Titans pooed on, the Titans twisted.
Yeah.
So think Hornsaw Forest, soap opera swamp, soap opera.
Soap opera swamp.
Soap opera
Daily,
swamp.
Monday through Friday.
I know, I can't pronounce it. Morning marshes, these kind of locations as Titan tainted,
Yeah.
or Titan scarred, and so your favorite terrain instead of forest would be Titan scarred general. So, but it wouldn't be every forest; it would just be the Hornsaw and maybe the Blood Rain Woods, but it wouldn't count with the Ganges. You wouldn't get any specials in the Ganges.
Right.
So, but it would be any of these, and although the problem with Gelspad, it's like half of fucking Gelspad. So I was like, I tried to limit it to like, the ones that really, that the Titans
really fucked
landed,
up.
and
Right.
the Devil's March, I think, totally qualifies as Titan scarred, in a way that the Mounds of Man doesn't, in a way that the Festering Fields doesn't. The undead there is not a result of the Titan bits happening, but the Devil's March, however, as I recall, kind of maybe is. And it used to be this verdant, lovely savanna, a la, these other verdant, lovely savannas that now have horrible names.
Right. Way back in the day when all of these were lovely places, and none of them are any longer.
Before a Titan came and pooped all over it. And these nomadic tribes would live here, and it was all pretty and nice. And then Mormo showed up, like you do, and decided that she wanted some Asathi here, and made them, and they wandered into the swamps of Kentet and all these other regions, and we'll talk about the Asathi in a later episode, when we will cover the swamps. So I thought, I just think this is interesting in terms of like, okay, this used to be part of the Elzen Empire. This used to be like these wonderful things, and then, obviously the Asathi were made before that, I think, but it still has that vibe. So I'm not End of Mormo's epoch, beginning of the Devil's March, current incarnation. So that's a long time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the Elven Empire built on this? Wow.
Yeah, because like the Asathi Empire was a long time ago, right?
It was a long, yeah, that was during Mormo's epoch,
Yeah.
which would have been before the Ice Age.
Yeah, so long time ago. And so a lot of the ruins that you find are so especially in this area, from what I remember, a lot of the ruins you find are Asathi Empire or Empire of Flame. Is that right? Empire of Fire?
Empire of the Flame.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Asathi Empire was before the Empire of the Flame. So,
yeah. So a lot of ruins over in that area from that.
Maybe this shouldn't be a Titan's Guard, because I guess I thought it was a result of stuff that happened during the war, but I may be wrong.
So why is it no longer a savannah?
Death and Demons pretty much sums up the region known as the Devil's March. It had another name once, but I don't remember what it was. It was prettier though, and that's for sure. So please listen to your grandfather when he says it's too dangerous to play your absurd adventure games there, even if you're only in the edge of the march. I know you think I spend too much time in my books, but at my age, I'm just happy to be alive. It would be happier if I could live to see you grow up just a little more. So instead of having your lives cut short by youthful foolishness, now go about your business and stay away from the march. So that's some librarian from Lochiel going, don't go there.
Right.
So yes, yeah, I guess this isn't Titan's Guard, so I probably should knock it off the list.
Interesting.
I thought it was. But yeah, so Ormo made a home here, and I don't know what else happened here, but it's a blighted plain, basically. And flora and fauna. Oh no, with soil that has been. This is why I made it. With soil that has been poisoned by Titan's blood and an atmosphere that seems with restless undead, the Devil's March is all but incapable of supporting life. That's why I made it. I knew there was.
Gotcha. Yeah.
From a safe distance, the plain appears grassy and healthy. However, everything grown in the grasses is blighted. Nothing that is natural exists in the march. Much of what does is undead. Travelers and those merchants desperate enough to brave the march should beware. So my guess is this was originally part of the Asathi Empire. As the Asathi Empire faded, it kind of became just.
Yeah, I'm curious
land.
what Titan it's talking about. Yeah, because it's talking about Titan's blood soaking it and everything. I'm just curious, but like a lot of times they would just generalize. So I guess it really depends. If you need it to make sense for your campaign, make it whatever you want it to be.
I don't think any of the Titans died here, but my guess is there's a lot of hand wave, that there was a lot of battles.
Yeah.
With Mormo and Churn and Kadam, and you only hear about the ones they were defeated.
Right.
Those are obviously the biggest. So you hear the Mormo's defeat in the Hornside. You hear of Kadam's defeat up by Blood Basin. But you don't heir of all of the half a dozen battles that happened before that.
Right. There's like these super generalized statements saying that like there were battles that took years, like these like many years of battles took place before one that actually is recorded in history. So
exactly. And presumably, I mean, a lot of these battles were just the followers of the Titans versus the followers of the gods beating each other up, and then at some point in the fight, a Titan or a god would show up and run havoc, and then the fight would end as everybody died or fucked off,
right,
or retreated or whatever. So I presumably a lot of these happen, and I would not be surprised if this Devil's March area was an area where one of the Titans or even one of the gods were wounded.
Yeah.
Not killed, but wounded. Infected it, so
yeah,
to speak, and wrecked everything. Because I mean,
if you had to guess, what would you say? If you had to attribute it to someone, like that's just like spawning undead for no reason.
Well, except the fact it's undead, I would say Mormo, because she's got this is sort of her region.
Yeah, I can totally see her showing up to defend it.
Mormo and Thulkas. Thulkas didn't really bleed so much as burn.
Right.
So I don't think Thulkas has blood per se. If you cut him, it would be lava.
Yeah.
Be blood.
Like Churn was the disease one, right?
Churn was the disease one.
Like I kind of lean towards Churn because everything's blighted. But
But it's not undead.
Yeah, the undead part doesn't necessarily make sense.
How would be undead?
And it could be, I mean, this might be a place where multiple titans and gods were fighting. And so this is what happens when you mix. Yeah.
Like, there was a little bit of Gormoth was over there, and
right. Play-Doh Fun Factory, it is not.
Yeah, and Gormoth. I mean, because early war we've got a pretty good map. Mesos was knocked out quickly, and Gulthaga was pretty quick in there. But there was like late mid-war where there was just a lot of fights with like Mormo and Churn and Titans whose names are escaping me at the moment. They all start with the letter G.
Most of them, yeah.
Gormoth, Gorak, Gorthane. Cool, no one knows about that one. Yeah. So it could have been Gorak. It could have been Gorak.
Yeah.
Any of them, but yeah, undead. I don't think any of the Titans are any of the Titans associated with the undead.
I can't think of one that's like specifically called out as really
undead, yeah.
And like necromancy magic is more. I mean, I guess you could say Mesos.
Mesos maybe, but that's just magic. It's not necessarily necromancy. So that's interesting. But but you can argue the name of Sorb is associated with undead.
That is completely fair.
So could have been all the Titans. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I don't know.
Whatever works for your campaign. If you even need an answer, this is one of those things that's like, do you need an answer to this?
Yeah. And that I think that's interesting because Skylands doesn't have two sides. It isn't like the Titans versus the gods.
Right.
It's like a fuck ton of stuff.
Right. You got your gods, you got your Titans, you got your Ushada, you got your people who don't give a fuck about any other. Like, I would say it's very, very difficult to be an atheist.
An atheist would be not somebody who doesn't believe in the gods, unless you're like a flat earther.
Right.
I deny it.
Right.
Because I have unfortunately seen it. Okay, fine. But I think an atheist would be somebody who says, I don't care, I don't follow them, I don't worship them, I don't think they're justified in the devotion of them. I don't, who made us? Who gives a crap? They don't deserve the Titans don't care if we worship them, so they don't deserve our devotion. The gods want us to worship them for their own greedy, selfish reasons, so I'm not going to give anyone a devotion. That would to me be not an atheist in the sense of belief, but more of an agnostic in the sense of, flipping the bird at everybody and just being like, I'm not religious. I just don't see a reason to be spiritual or whatever.
Right.
Those people are going to get reincarnated and shoved through the door of reincarnation or dragged off or some god might hold it. I don't carry a mind. But that's why I picture what a non-believer would be. But unless they're like a flat earther who's just in denial,
right?
I guess.
Right.
But we talk to the people who've been to heaven. We know it exists. So and so was resurrected. She can tell you how she ran into her grandma.
Right.
Well, I'm a big fan of Order of the Stick. It's his online webcomic, and he talks about that extensively, about how could you be somebody who doesn't believe and several characters in Order of the Stick die and come back and visit heaven and then come back
nice.
Resurrected, and they talk about their experiences and everything, and it's just really interesting to be like, and there's a great comic, there's a little joke and aside, what would it be if the people didn't believe in this stuff? That would be crazy. And so it's like kind of fascinating, but so I talk about that in terms of I envy, in a way, I strangely envy the characters of fantasy universes because they know. Yeah,
they've got proof.
They know they have proof that heaven and hell exist because you can talk to people who've been there.
Yeah, multiple planes, different existences.
Yeah,
Love
they
it.
know. They
Yeah.
know. And I kind of envy that. They know for sure, and that they know it's like that confidence that like if I'm a good person when I die, Madriel will take me to their happy heaven.
Right. Which is
That
probably
and
why designers did that, because they're like, I would like to feel, comfort
oh, who
like
knows?
that, knowing.
Who knows? It's I think it's more of a comfort than because of that tangible proof that you don't
Yeah.
get with necessarily human with Earth religions.
Right?
So I like that. I like that about it.
So
Anyway, that's
anything.
way off topic. So I don't know why there's undead in the Devil's Marches, but there's undead in the Devil's Marches, and there's undead in the Festering Fields, and
Yeah, and
there's
the Mounds of
undead in the
Man.
Mounds of
And
Man.
pretty much
And
if you
this
go this direction,
it's
there's,
just bad.
right.
Just bad.
Undead
So
aberrations,
this
don't go there.
this would be a great region if you're like, I want to throw Curse of Strahd in the middle of the Scarred Lands.
Right.
just gonna tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
Why would Ravenloft be? I don't know why Ravenloft would be in Scarred Lands, but this would be like, you want to throw a who's that necromancer guy that the famous lich.
Asarak.
Asarak. You want to throw the Tomb of Horrors in somewhere? Any of these regions.
Right.
Would work. This is where if Asarak. That's confusing because there's a continent called Asherak and Asarak. It sounds way too similar, and I don't like that. But yeah, I am literally in a campaign where we're playing Tomb of Horrors. This is it. This is all I can. This is my only reaction. It's awful. It is truly. I don't know why. Yeah. So, but if you're gonna do, this is it. And we'll talk about Holocaust at a later time. But the home of necromancy. So yeah, that's all I got to say. I think on this. And next time we'll talk about we'll continue in Western Gale-Spa to talk about the Ironbird properly. And then we've also got to cover, in the future we've got Lokiel, Holofaust, Hornsoft Forest,
Yeah.
and Snathi, with Storms of Kenset, and all of their shit in this whole area, Pruden Desert. There's a lot, and eventually we did the Gleaming Valley. We haven't done the Gleaming Valley yet, so we've got
so much to do.
And that's not even touching all this shit up here.
So join us next Friday, and we'll talk about the new release that'll be on. Oh, yeah. What were you saying?
I was just saying that's going to come out hopefully next Wednesday.
Yeah. So ideally next week, our Friday broadcast will talk about the Wednesday release on DriveThru.
Assuming it comes out in time and we have enough time to read it before.
Yeah, as long as Travis, who's the line lead over at Onyx Path, doesn't have his door busted down by cops again. The crazy crap that happens to RPG designers,
I think it would go out independent of that because I don't think he has a trigger to pull, but Rich could pull that trigger, but yeah, that's a whole other fucked up thing that happened this week.
In fact, I'm going to post the link to Travis's stuff over on DriveThru. Long story short, his house was raided I don't want to say unlawfully, but they got the wrong address.
Yeah,
reading skills should be important.
Based on shitty information.
And so they came in and broke his door down and wrecked his house, and then realized, it's the neighbors.
Yeah.
Who are probably now running because, warning.
Warning. The fuck. And yeah, they had a warrant, but the warrant was not
for his place or him.
I got it filled out wrong, or they had the wrong information, or whatever. But
so in order, currently he has no idea who's paying for all of that. So he's trying to get sales over on DriveThru. So I'm going to post that link in the show notes.
Yeah, this shit's real.
Head over.
Real
And his stuff is awesome anyway. Check out Odysseys and Overlords. It's so much fun. I had no idea until I played it that recent time. That was so much fun. So I'll post that. go check that out. Sarah, give us your information before we head out.
Yeah, I am, as I mentioned, a co-author of Vigilant, Book 1 of Through Shadows and Dreams.
Yay!
I have a whole mess of titles Scarlands related up on DriveThru RPG. More will be coming over the next few months. I am been spending the last few weeks not working on the sequel to Shadows and Dreams, but on the sequel on more materials for more RPG materials for DriveThru, because I'm not allowed to be a novelist anymore. I just have to be a game designer. Someday, because I also have a day job. So, I can be best found on Discord. I know it's like, where can you find me? You can find me on Discord. If you really want to find me, you can find me on Discord. And I am, who am I on Discord? I'm Ketinas something. I have to actually look that up.
Yeah, let me find.
Ketina6065 on Discord. Ketina 6065. That's where you can find me the best. I know I've made jokes about Facebook and I've made jokes about Twitter. I guess I'm foolishly opening myself up to direct messages on Discord.
You can always block people.
I can always block people, exactly. So if you want to actually get in touch with me, otherwise my website is more like thisindustries.com.
Excellent. All right, I am Jeremy Hochhalter. I run this channel kind of when life events don't keep fucking up our schedules. You can join us here on Fridays for the lore at 2 p.m. Eastern, and then right after that at 4:30 p.m. Eastern is the Curiosity Cache, and we should be going live today. I don't think there's anything keeping us from streaming, so I'm excited about that. Yay! It's a game set in Shelzar, oddly enough, here in the Scarred Lands. On Wednesdays, I'm a player in Chaz Calendar's Final Fantasy XIV inspired 5e actual play, also here on this channel. And on Mondays, both Sarah and I are part of Travis Legge's Scarred Lands, A Family Affair, which should be, I actually missed this last, Monday, so I don't know what happened, but I'm looking forward to this coming Monday. Gaming is so great for escapism right now.
Oh my god.
Catharsism.
Yeah, you don't even need BTT.
Right?
5th edition you can roll it with that.
Totally.
Google Maps maybe on Discord, whatever, Zoom, Skype, whatever your platform is, Facebook chat. I don't care what you use, but it's a great. It helps. Oh my god.
Totally. I mean, sometimes you just need to go stab a goblin in the face.
Yeah.
It's
after
it's
the
just
week we just had.
Oh right.
Goblin stabbing will be happening. Not goblins. I like goblins, not goblins.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I guess it depends on your settings goblins, because some goblins are like, yeah, I kind of like you, and some are like just irreparably evil.
I think zombie stabbing.
Zombie stabbing is great. Although then you watch movies like Warm Bodies, and you're just like, oh yeah, Warm Bodies. Zombies.
Okay, I don't have it's Nazi stabbing.
Can't go wrong there. Punch her in the face. You can find me on Twitter at WHPubs, Facebook, and here on Twitch at WH Publications. We will see you next Friday. Have fun, everybody. Be safe. Bye. I need to find the button. Where's the button? Bye.